Good morning.
Good morning. This is Meditation Reflections. Welcome. It's a little bit cloudy, rainy this morning, but always a good day.
Mm-hmm.
And very busy day, so we got lots to do, so let's get on with it.
Oh, and we had a good meditation this morning.
As usual.
I was getting all sorts of bits and pieces of information, but the thing that Spirit most wanted to share with you was a very interesting metaphor that would not have naturally occurred to me. She says, this information is rather like wine being pressed.
Yeah.
So when you have a big keg and the grapes are being broken up, the juice starts very, very slowly. But then the pressure system is put in, the big crank down wheel, and then the flow increases enormously. And she was saying that was like the flow of information coming out, and it would dwindle down. But she says that's not the important bit. The important bit is when the cask of grape juice is filled up with its yeast, the little yeast eating the sugar and producing the wine.
And ferments the wine, yep.
Ferments the wine. She says what you're forgetting about is the wine fermentation. And you had a wonderful that on the wine fermentation.
Yeah, it's kind of like acclimating the information. First you get the information, you have an understanding, and then you kind of process it for a while, and that's moving it toward a greater and greater understanding to where you assimilate it into not just an understanding but a knowing. So you no longer just understand it, you know it. And it's, what was the phrase I used earlier? I lost it. Anyway, it's more than just hearing the information, understanding it. It's knowing it beyond a shadow of a doubt. There's no,
that was it.
yeah, something like that.
A kind of complete proof of truth. The other part of it is when information is very, very complex, it takes a while to process it, but you're processing it into a system of understanding. You see how all the little bits of information fit together to produce a larger picture.
Yeah.
I can remember in my second biology class at university, we were studying photosynthesis, which was, of course, going to be on the final exam. And the chemistry of photosynthesis is enormously complicated. And I remember studying it really, really hard and going, okay, I got to memorize all this. And he's asking questions. The way they phrased the question on the exam suddenly triggered the information sticking in my mind and how it actually all fit together, that the sunlight coming in created this chemical, which created this chemical, which created this chemical, and that the little plant was making that transformation until it literally ended up with food that the plant could use. So I saw the system of information based on all the little facts that I had, and finally understood. It's kind of a pity to get it right at the exam, but I was grateful. I did a good job on the exam, and the prophet asked the question in a very good way.
She's like Lisa Simpson here.
Yeah, I am.
She got an A.
I got an A. Oh, I have to admit, I was desperate for an A because my grades hadn't been all that good on the other two exams. So I had to kind of ace that exam if I was going to ace the class. And so that, by the way, University of Houston had a real good deal. If you aced every test prior to the final exam, you didn't take it. Talking about motivation to get good grades on those exams. Yeah. I'm a nerd. It's okay.
Yeah.
But I do think that system metaphor and the transformation of knowledge till it becomes fully your own, fully internalized, which I think is wisdom.
Yeah, absolutely. I was kind of bouncing around a little bit and trying to have better communication with my guides. I do have communication with them, but it comes often in the form of symbology and metaphor and this and that. And I'm trying to establish a direct conversational link where I can talk to them. I do hear them, but not clearly all the time. It's just a word or two. But Donna's on a more conversational level with them, which is what I hope to attain. So I made some progress, and it's kind of like being at a party and just listening into conversations, because they're not always talking directly to me, they're talking to each other sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was kind of interesting to pick up on pieces of that. So
I need to explain this. In '99, I did a workshop on channeling with John Goldenham, who was an amazing teacher. We were about 16 people in the workshop, and about 8 of us made contact with a guide or guidance. And I had a lovely lady show up who was Lady in Green, and beautifully dressed. I could draw the costume, and she had a little bit of Buddha right there, kind of nestled in her hand, tiny little one. So she was being as friendly as possible. And so off and on we had bits and pieces would show up for her. And one day she took over an art history lecture and did it slightly better than I could do it, but didn't reveal any information that would have confused the students, because later on I discovered that we actually have a slightly different history and she actually knew both of them. But because of that, I had this ongoing link. But between '99 and 2014, it was this occasional random word, bit of conversation, little insight, or that one occasion where she showed up and talked for about an hour. I was going, this is interesting, because I can hear the difference. Her phrasing is different than mine. And then in 2019, Corey Good was talking about his experience with the Anshar, which are in-earth beings. And I suddenly went, and spent that the inner earth being spent a lot of times meditating for the purpose of talking with the surface in order to encourage them, give them positive messages, and help in any way they can. But they often presented themselves as guides or special spirits or angels or other things like that to keep the humans comfortable with what they were experiencing. And I immediately I'm a reasonably regular meditator, went in, asked Lady in Green if she was actually an Anshar. And she said, since you asked the question, I have to tell you the truth. And at that point, it turned into a kind of conversation with me asking questions. But that's what a 13-year period of slowly building up a skill.
she is an Agarthan.
She's an Agarthan.
Yeah.
So it was kind of an interesting experience and something a little bit different. But later on, when I got a healing, and what does James Gillian call his?
Transpersonal.
I think it's transpersonal clearing or transpersonal release. Transpersonal release.
Yeah.
Glenn and I both got one,
Yeah.
because I had this strong.
This was in East Ranch in Washington State.
In 2018.
Yeah.
When I got that clearing, because I already had this strong link, the guides that James introduced me to talking to me. So I had a situation where, by the way, it took me 3 months to get her name. It's Amatri.
No, it was years actually.
Yeah, true, years. Because there was a conversation, but we pestering her going, I want a name to call you by. And she gave it to me one syllable at a time. You're much better at getting their names. So
yeah, it's interesting. I get their names, but not much direct communication. Conversational. It's just, like I say, more symbolic imagery. Sometimes just a knowing. I don't know how to. It's difficult to describe because it doesn't come through just here. It comes through the heart, and we have multiple senses and multiple ways of communicating. And actually using the mind is, believe it or not, the least reliable.
True. Anyway, because Amatri, Lady in Green, could speak with Shia and Chai and a lot of others, I was simply following conversations going on between them. So they do enjoy talking to each other because they're sometimes from different levels and different places. And for Amatri, it was really wonderful to talk to Shia because Shia knew things. And it actually moved Amatri forward in her profession, which is religious leader or priestess or help. And she taught me a lot, because I could ask her about her culture. We spent a lot of time talking about what she loves. So it was an interesting back and forth. But we're not talking about my clairaudience having formed quickly. We're talking about a slow process. And it got easier and easier as I continued to work on it or work with it. So what I'm saying is don't give up on it, either you, and we can do some exercises, but also it's worth trying. Ask to speak with them. Ask a question.
Yeah, it's important to go deep within yourself and trust that, trust what you get.
Yeah.
And practice.
And if they give you something that you can verify in reality, go check it out, which is equally interesting. They gave me an assignment this morning I got to go check out. I'll let you know if it's true.
Anyway, we should close for now. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time, and blessings.
Blessings upon you.